All right, what's good, parents? What's good, administrators? What's good, students? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the College Access and Persistence podcast, y'all. We got another episode for you. Excited. If this is your first time tuning in, you might be wondering, like, what is this? What do y'all talk about? Well, we talk about everything college access and persistence, right? Kind of self-explanatory. But to be more specific, y'all, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work, and it takes the right moves to get to college, right? To make it there. And then once you're there, it takes a lot of work to get through college. And so what I'm doing is I'm interviewing leaders in the college access and persistence space so they can share their best practices, share their experiences, and give those nuggets and those gems about not just what it takes, but how they lead their teams, how they lead their departments, and what they've learned over their time. The other real great part of this podcast is that we're building a community of administrators and leaders in the space to foster collaboration, not just collaboration within the persistence space and collaboration within the access space, but there's so much between those two leaders, groups of leaders, where we want to actually foster interaction between those groups, right? So our high school and our college administrators. And so this is a space where we're going to do it. And I believe the best way to learn is just to do what people are doing, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. And so y'all are going to get a lot of great nuggets tonight from Dr. Woods from Xavier University of Louisiana. She is the coordinator for exploratory advising and academic programs at Xavier, y'all, and she has a wealth of experience. Welcome, 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 Dr. Woods. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening. I am great, Fred, and thank you so much for having me.
No problem, no problem. And as y'all can see, she is a woman of Delta Sigma Theta. So shout out to all of the Deltas. My wife is a Delta. Yeah, this is, look, so y'all know it's gonna be a great podcast. Y'all already know it's gonna be a great podcast. All right, look, we're gonna dig into these questions. We're gonna dig into these questions. So I'm always interested into people's journey into education. So my first question for you is, how did you enter the field of education? What was your journey? Why did you choose the field of education?
So I came by happenstance, I would say. So I am a product of the Desire Community Project. And so I was a non-traditional college student. I had a daughter right out of high school, and we wanted to get married right out of high school, but my mom insisted that I get some college before I got married. So we agreed that I would go to school and get an associate degree, and then she signed off on the marriage. And so that's what happened. I went to Southern University in New Orleans. I received an associate degree in secretarial science. That's what my degree was in. And actually, it was because that was the only major I saw that I didn't have to take math. I was terrified of math, terrified of college math. And so that's the trajectory I did. And so I graduated with my associate degree. I got married. And of course, things didn't quite work out with the marriage. And so decided several years later, after I started working at Xavier, in 1977. And just working with college students who were, I have to say, much different because they were almost my age. You know, I may have been 3 to 4 years older than them, and that was about it. And so, but the level of maturity of the 18 and 19-year-olds back then was just amazing. And so it was working. I was the coordinator for college work study when I first started working at Xavier. And so in that capacity, I had a lot of contact with students. And actually, it was my students who encouraged me to go back and get a bachelor's degree. And so one of my students who kept telling me to go back, she wound up passing away in a car accident. And so I had a coworker who said, okay, remember you told me you were going back to school. And So I told him, I said, yeah, I know. I said, but I can't do math. I just can't do math. He said, yes, you can. He said, and
Mhm.
we gonna get you a tutor. You're gonna do math and you're gonna go back to school. And that's exactly what happened. He went to the school, got the application, brought it back to me to make sure I filled it out. And it stuck to his word. He got me a student at Xavier who tutored me in math and went on from there. So when I went back to school, my bachelor's degree was in business administration. And so over the years working with Xavier, um, I decided to do a master's in counselor education because one of my students who came to me as a freshman, by sophomore year, she was diagnosed as manic depressive. And
Mhm.
I needed to understand
Mhm.
what I can do to help her. So my plan was to get my master's in counseling and actually become a counselor, but God had other plans. It didn't work out that way.
Mhm.
And so from that, I my daughter wound up graduating from high school, and then I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I said, okay, school seemed to be my thing. I seem to do okay when I go to school. So I went back to work on my doctorate in higher education administration. So again, I wanted to do counselor education, but that testing, so there was
Mhm.
a test called a GRE that you
Mhm.
had to take to get into graduate school, where I decided, did fine at Xavier, but UNO, University of New Orleans, wanted a much higher score than I had achieved on that GRE. And so they let me enroll conditionally. I took counseling classes. I did very well in the
Mhm.
counseling courses, but I still couldn't get admitted because I didn't have the GRE. And lo and behold, I ran into an instructor. And I told him that was going to be my last semester because I wasn't doing it anymore, trying to get the test or whatever. And he said, I think you're in the wrong area. He said, all of your experience is in higher ed. I really think you need to get your doctorate in education administration, a higher ed track. And so he said, I have this friend. I want you to meet with him. So in my head, I'm saying, yeah. I'm not going through this anymore. So um, 2 days later, his friend called me because I didn't call the friend. And so he was like, yeah, Lou told me that you were going to call me. I didn't hear from you. I'd love to chat with you for a minute. So he scheduled an appointment. I went in, we talked. I said, but I know you and those standards. I just can't take that GRE again. And he said, I don't want you to do the GRE. He said, you ever heard of Miller's analogy? I said, no. He said, well, go look it up. They're doing the test at Xavier on Saturday. I want you in there taking that test. So the rest was history. I did it. I got accepted into the University of New Orleans for the Education Administration Higher Ed track. I graduated with honors of being the outstanding graduate student. There are two awards. There's a dissertation award, and then there's the outstanding graduate student award. So I won the second award, the outstanding graduate student award at the University of New Orleans. And that's just kind of how it went. All of my work was in education because from starting off as the coordinator of college work study, I ended being the associate director for financial aid. And so I was in the financial aid arena for about 30 years before I decided I needed a change. I needed more student contact. My work had gotten to be just paperwork and reporting and all of that. And I truly miss that interaction with students. And so position became available in academic affairs. I applied for it, I got it. And so for the last 15 years, I have been working in the area of student support. My major responsibility is working with students who get into academic trouble, those ones who you are concerned about of actually getting to college and completing college. And so that's the population that I work with and find it really, really rewarding. So that's how I got into higher ed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's a few things that really stick out to me. One, it's always interesting, especially for those of us that choose education, how much more we get from our students than we think we're pouring into them. I feel like every student meeting, I always leave with more energy, more positivity, and I get more motivation than I think I'm giving to my students. So that was one thing. And the other thing you said that, again, is always interesting is you think you have this one path set in your head. This is the way I want to go. And then God has his way of saying, nah, you're not going this way. I have this plan for you. Can you talk to me about, like, because you talked about multiple moments where it's like, here's the direction I want to go, but I'm going this way. And then you had somebody there to help you. Can you just kind of take me through mentally what that felt like? Not that you went start, stop, but it's like, here I'm going and it's redirect. Here I'm going, redirect. So what did that kind of feel like, that journey for you?
It was challenging. I'm a first gen. So I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I did not have a lot of guidance on what to do, how to do it, how to make sure it happened. However, when I started working in financial aid, my director became my mentor, who was just amazing, encouraging me even when I felt like I couldn't do it. She was always there saying, yeah, yes, you can, stop doubting yourself. You can do this. And had her support 100%. And so that was my encouragement. Her name was Mildred Higgins. I worked for her about between 25 and 30 years before she retired. And actually, she was about, I think she retired at 90, 91, something like that. Was outstanding, working sharp at 90 something years old. And so that was my driving force. That's who kept me going, kept me guided, kept me grounded. And of course, my relationship with God, my pastor, who each time I did not get that score on that GRE, I would say, his name was Reverend Lafayette. I said, Reverend Lafayette, could you pray for me that I get the score? And the last conversation we had before he passed away, he said, Adrian, you're going to come a day, you're going to have to pray for yourself, baby. He said, so let me ask you this. If we pray and you still don't get the score, will you be upset with God? And I said, no, I will not. And so when I did not get that score the third time, my mind was so made up. That's why I didn't call the man back, because I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. That's not what God wanted for me. But never knowing, God had already had a ram in the bush to make it happen.
You never that's exactly why you never give up, but also you surrounded yourself and tapped into those supports that were around you. None of us get it done on our own, right? People want to see us succeed, and so definitely got to lean on those that are around us to help us. Now I know you have a wealth of experience in education, and specifically in your role that you're in now. What do you find to be the most challenging, or has been the most challenging in your role? And then how have you overcome that? Because nobody has the longevity that you have without overcoming a few challenges.
Oh, wow. So I think the challenges are always organizational, I guess I would say, and I'm gonna tread lightly. Organizational. Students, I don't find the student challenges put me in a negative place. But sometimes the organizational things that you have to go through can be a bit challenging, especially at a university. I was at a university where we had a president who had been at Xavier for 47 years. He was the longest standing president in history of higher ed. And so coming from having that kind of background to having a new president, a new provost, and new VP, all of those things created challenges, but I just stayed true to who I was. and that helped me. I never thought I was bigger than the process. I stayed humble and just made sure that whatever I can do to help the university, to help the students that we're serving, that was always first and foremost to me, is my purpose for being there, was to make sure that these students that we accept, as many as I can, don't let them get lost in the struggle. And so I always kept that first in my mind, regardless to who was the lead or in charge. The bottom line was our students that we serve. And so I made sure I made myself available to any administrator who needed my assistance, who was willing to listen to my words of wisdom that I had learned over my tenure at Xavier. And so that's just basically how I overcome challenges. I remember who I am, whose I am, and my purpose for being. And when I do those things, it makes the challenges seem so small in comparison that, you know, they're very easy to overcome.
Identity is such an important part as a professional, and being honest with you, as a Black professional in any space. And I know for me, that identity as a Black professional, it took time to really shape it to a point where I could be confident in every space that I step into. Can you speak to your journey and your identity and how that grew? Because I'm sure, of course, it grew over time, but if you were to compare yourself now to year one, your identity probably took a lot of work. So was there anything you did intentionally to like improve upon that? Or yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so actually we had a provost that was there who he saw my leadership skills, but he thought that I would benefit from additional leadership training. And so I was afforded the opportunity to attend a leadership program that was sponsored by, I think it was called a Higher Education Resource. It's HERS, Higher Education Resource System. And it is held at Bryn Mawr College. They do it at some other places too, but the program I went to was at Bryn Mawr in Pennsylvania, where I had an opportunity to live on campus for 2 weeks with some outstanding women in higher education. Very few Black women. The majority of the women there were white women, but so supporting, so encouraging. And we still keep in touch via Facebook. But that experience was very meaningful to me. It helped to build my confidence, because when number one, I was surprised I got accepted. You had to do an application, and I was like, oh my God, I can't compete with all those women, you know. And but he said, complete the application and submit it. So when I got the letter from Dr. Francis saying I had been accepted, I was like, oh my God, you know, who is this person got accepted? That became possible to be me. But it really helped to lift my self-esteem and help me to understand that I was a professional and I was a leader, and I did have the skill set, and I could be competitive with any other leader out there. And so that was the change for me. Prior to that, I'll say in my role, I've had leadership roles, but I was always, I always took a back seat, if that makes sense. I never wanted to be a leader that's out front, where I'm a quiet in the back kind of leader. And that's just who I am. And I've been that way. And even now, I know I have the skill set to do it, but I like doing it quietly in the background.
Right. And it's so important to understand, you're right, you don't have to be at the forefront to lead. I always like to say, and I don't know where I got this quote from, but leadership isn't the title you have, it's what you do when the opportunity presents itself. And one thread I'm seeing is that you have a support system that once you get to a point that is helping to shape and form your identity, be like, and affirm you and say like, no, you can do it. Yes, you will do it. Like sometimes you need more than just a nudge. Sometimes you need somebody with just a stick and you know what to do it. And so I'm thankful for those people that are surrounding you. For those of you women, men that are watching this, Dr. Woods is really, I mean, she's putting it all out there for y'all and really letting you know the things that she had to go through mentally, emotionally, what she dealt with. And so again, why you should never give up, why you should continue to invest in yourself, but also surround yourself with people who are going to invest in you.
And positive people.
Yes, yes, positive people that are going to build you up.
Yeah, you got to keep your circle small and make sure you have a circle of people who support you and you support them that is reciprocal, and that makes a great difference.
Yeah, it can't just be take, right? Or you're just giving. You're right. They have to reciprocate.
That's right.
They have to reciprocate it. And make sure you're not the person in that relationship, in that interaction that's just taking, right? Make sure you're adding value to that relationship as well. That's such a great point.
Yeah.
And speaking of leadership, right? In any leadership role, outcomes, especially in higher ed, are so important. It's not enough to just do work. It's like, is it actually benefiting the student? How do we measure it? How do we know? So can you speak to what's a key strategy that you use to very directly impact student outcomes? Kind of walk us through your strategy and what you do.
So for me, it's the being real with my students. I know, like I told you, generational, just seeing the change in students from when I began working at Xavier in 1977, and students came in ready to hit the work world. They came in dressing the part, talking the part, in and out of college and making things happen. And as time went on, those things started changing. Students started going from 4 years to 6 years completion rates with college, having to stop out, start over, and so the student started changing. So when the student changed, you have to change because you have to be able to meet that student where they are. So I couldn't deal with the student right now the way I dealt with the student in 1978, 79, I had, as a matter of fact, one of my students, I think she graduated maybe 1979 or 82 or somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly. But she called me the other day from Houston and she was like, I just was having a moment thinking about you. And when I didn't want to do my work study, how you told me if I didn't do my work study, you were going to call my mama, So some students I can't do that with today. I have to be mama and I have to say that this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And also being real. Sometimes students have a different sense of where they are academically. For example, we may have had a student who was top of her class in a school that has a low rating. And then she comes to Xavier. And then you have, you have another 100 that's just as smart as you are, And so that can put a student in a bad spot, losing motivation just like that, because in their mind, they are the top, and then grades don't be in alignment with what they conceive themselves to be. And so just being real with them, letting them know, it doesn't have anything at all to do with whether you're smart or not. What's smart is how you're using the resources that you have. Are you going to tutoring? Are you going to see your instructors? Are you meeting with your advisor? Do you have all the information you need to help you be a successful student? And so just the conversation is different based on the student population that we're serving now. And so I would just say being real and not allowing them to fall into I don't know what I want to call it, but this thing that I see happening now is everybody have they're stressed, you know, they're so stressed out. They got a lot going on. That's the term I hear all the time. I just have a lot going on. I'm like, could you, give me a little bit more information about a lot? Well, I have homework. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you're in college. You're gonna have homework in all 5 of those classes you have. And so just keeping it real.
Were those conversations with the student that's the valedictorian, was the valedictorian in high school, and then you get to Xavier and it's like, oh shoot, I'm struggling to keep my head above water. Were those conversations difficult for you in the beginning, or like how should people have those conversations with students?
No, they weren't difficult. So I keep tissue in my office. I keep tissue. I allow them the moment to have that emotional moment. I give them that time, and then we get real. I give them the time to have the emotional little cry and all of that, and then we get real. Okay, so what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? You're gonna lay down or you're gonna get up? So you have to have those hard conversations. And it depends on the student. So I have one student who I can say it harshly to and know it's going to be received. And I have another student who I might have to say, nah, baby, come on. That this is what you're going to do. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to do that. And then I, have another one say, you are going to, or do I need to close this door? So it depends on them, and I am very comfortable in having that conversation in whichever way it have to happen, because ultimately my job is to make sure they're successful if I can.
And I'm sure, like, I was imagining myself being that student and not just feeling hurt, but I don't, sometimes I don't even like the term tough love. It's just like you're meeting them where they're at, and whatever push they need, whatever motivation they need, that's what you're providing. But it's so individualized. It's different for every single student. You know every single student so well. You know exactly what buttons to push, when, how much to kind of comfort them versus how much to be like, look, it's just time to get your stuff together. I think administrators, there aren't enough administrators that really understand how that moment is building identity for that student.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Just this past week, I had a student who she suffers with anxiety. Registration was overwhelming. We had some issues with computer issues, and some classes got dropped, and then trying to get her back in those classes, and they were full, and it became so much for her. All I could say is take a deep breath. I need you to stop right now and just breathe. And just breathe, and I'll just let her sit, no talking, no nothing, just sit there and breathe until you can get yourself together, and then we can revisit some of these things. And so, just have to, it's just awareness, just being aware, and kind of feeling out what they need when they need it. Does it work for all of them? No, I have a few who will, as the term they use, ghost me. But in the end, they may come back and say it. I wish I wouldn't have. I wish I had met with you like you asked me to. But if I can win 10 out of 20, I'm happy.
They always come around. They always come back around. Always come back around. Switching gears a little bit, I know on a college campus, right? I mean, in life in general, it takes a village, and so collaboration is key. So can you speak to maybe some bright spots where your office has collaborated with another office on campus, and what did you do to make that happen, and what was the outcome?
We collaborate with several different offices. So we work closely with admissions. We work very close with financial aid. Um, I sit on so there's a committee called Satisfactory Academic Progress Committee. For those students who may not meet the requirements for financial aid, there's an opportunity for them to appeal that decision. And so I sit on that committee. I chaired it for many, many years. But I sit on that committee now. We work very closely with our counseling and wellness office. We have another office that's called the Center for Undergraduate Research. And so we work closely with that office, work very close with the registrar's office. We try to make sure that we are knowledgeable in an effort to keep students from running around. If they don't need to go visit the registrar and I have an answer to a question, something as simple as I want to change my major, then I don't need to send them to the registrar's office for that. I have change of major forms in my office, and so we can get that process started. So collaboration is really key to the whole success of our office. Our office is called Office of Student Academic Success. And so that our goal is to try to eliminate as much running around students have to do. If we can answer questions, then we make sure we have enough information from those other departments. We also try to work closely with faculty members because we have sometimes a dual advising role. So a student who's on strict probation, meaning that their cumulative GPA is below 2.0, may be advised from someone in my office, but they're also advised in their major department. And so we try to make sure we're collaborating to make sure that whatever schedule, whatever academic plan we put in place, that we are doing that co-jointly for the best outcome for the student.
Gotcha. Like you said, whether it's faculty, whether it's departments, offices, there's a ton of collaboration that happens. Has there ever been a time or a moment, and you ain't got to name no names, where that was challenging?
It's always challenging with faculty. It's always challenging with faculty. Yeah, we had a little change in how the advising process works that we thought was better suited for students who come in with developmental needs. And so, but the thing about it is, even though it was challenging, we respect each other. And so it was, we agreed to disagree collaboratively, collegiately. And so it never resulted in major friction because we just agree to disagree on how that process worked. So, yeah.
Right. You won't be on the same page every time. Y'all are still professionals.
It's impossible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's kind of impossible. You're not gonna always be on the same page all the time. I mean, even within my office, within my office, sometimes, one advisor may have a different perspective on a process than another advisor. Because I guess because I've been there the longest, most of the advisors respect my wisdom, my experience, and so they tend to agree when we will have discussion on different ways to handle situations. But I also listen to them because it's important to bring new ideas to this process. I mean, one of the things I do sometimes is when I get up in the morning and I pray, I ask God to give me something new to be able to make sure I'm meeting the students that I'm going to be seeing that day. Something new, a new way to see things, a new way to study, and so it's important that we share that. And so I'm always open to new ideas that my team is sharing. in this process.
Mm. Y'all heard it first from Dr. Woods. Look, conflict can be a good thing. Even if you don't agree, it can help to strengthen ideas, strengthen your department, get a new perspective. So look, embrace it. Embrace it when it happens.
Yes.
Talking about conflict, right? And look, we're gonna get imaginary for a while, right? If you could wave a magic wand, right, and education was forever changed, what changes would you make?
Whew. The number one change I think I would make is in terms of finances. Um, I would definitely not charge interest on student loans. You know, I understand that students may have to have loan to help support the amount of tuition they have to pay, but I definitely don't think you should have to pay interest on it. And I think that, you know, because that just increases how much people have to pay, and then they can't afford to pay it because the interest is so high on it. That's one of the things. The other thing that I would do is make sure that we have the resources available to meet the needs of the students we're accepting in our school. Um, Back when I was working on my dissertation, they had this statement about the sink or swim approach. I don't think that's an approach that we should look at in education, whether it's a historical Black college or a predominantly white college. If we accept a student into our school, then we have a responsibility to meet the needs of those students. But students have a responsibility too. They have to be willing to learn. They have to be willing to study. You know, they have to do their part. And so if they do their part and we do our part, we can't help but have a successful college graduate. And so that's my magic wand, would get rid of the sink or swim approach, get rid of financial barriers to education. And you know, and also I think I would even have to go back as far as K-12 and see some changes there. I really think it is important that our students learn from a very young age how to study. And I think that's the hardest thing for them when they get to college, because they never really had to study. They regurgitate information, they memorize, you know, they were able to give back exactly what they memorized, but that doesn't happen in college. They're looking in college, your faculty members are looking to see how you apply the information you have learned. So your test going to be application. It can be true or false, but it's going to be application. You know, so I think that if they start learning how to really test from a different perspective than these standardized tests, but testing concepts, testing for understanding, that sort of thing, and definitely learning study strategies, time management, and doing those things early on, I think they will do much better, be much better prepared when they get to college. And I say that because I have a niece, a great niece, who mother from a little thing. We used to get so upset with her mom. She's a child, let her have some freedom. Mama said, yeah, she could have freedom after she does work. You know, even during the summer, she had to read a certain number of books. You know, she had, and then once she read the books, her mom tested on the books, you know. But then the schools that she went to Arden Cahill, and then she went to Dominican. But those schools taught them how to study. They taught them how to prepare. When she went to college, she, you know, words that sometimes I might have to go look up in a dictionary. This girl knew, you know, what it meant. She knew the context. And so I think that if all students can have that kind of education, then we'll have a better chance of seeing our students be successful college graduates.
That would have a huge impact. Like you said, it's something I try to talk about a lot, and we can't necessarily hold it against high school students.
No.
You go from an environment just like you described, where it takes a certain skill or certain habits and routines to be successful, and those habits and routines are not transferable to college. If you do the same things that you did in high school and college academically, you're not going to be successful. Trust me, I tried it, and it does not work.
Yeah, if I said if I had $1 for every time a student told me I didn't learn how to study in high school, I'll be rich and retired by now.
Right, right. And look, perfect segue into the last question, right? So let's think about your retirement, right? You're at your retirement party. Every student that you've ever helped to counsel is there. All of those people that were in your corner, invested in you, pushing you, making sure you kept pushing on are there. And then somebody, right, is giving a toast. What would you want your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be in education? What would you want them to say about you?
That I was there,
Mm.
that I was there, that I was available, that I did not just talk the talk, but I walked the walk. I gave my time, I gave my best effort to their success, that they were always first and foremost. The most important part of my job was my students. And that's the legacy I would love to leave when I get ready to retire from Xavier.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm not surprised by your answer at all. You do it for the students. This has been an amazing interview. I really appreciate you taking out time for it. I'm sure when people watch this, as they're watching this, they're going to be inspired by what you said. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn, or is there a way people can maybe reach out to you if they resonate?
Actually, I was on LinkedIn, and we had a cyber thing, and LinkedIn was kind of hacked into, so I have not gotten back on LinkedIn since that happened. So they can always reach me by my email, my personal email, awoodsw44@gmail.com. And yeah, I would love to just chat with them, answer any additional questions that they may have, anything that they would like to have heard me say. I would love to be able to fill that gap for them. So yeah, by my personal email would be fine.
Awesome. So y'all got, if you got questions, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, I know you're inspired by parts of Dr. Wood's story. You probably see yourself at different parts of her journey. She made it. She kept pushing. She's having a tremendous impact, profound impact on the students at Xavier, and you can too. So definitely reach out to her and pick her brain and get some inspiration. Thank you again, Dr. Woods. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time, and I love what you're doing. Looking forward to seeing that success.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, y'all. Look, stay tuned for the next episode of the College Access and Persistence podcast. And I'm going to see y'all on the other side of graduation.